What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you because there's still some, stuff coming out towards the end of the year because this year's been absolutely loaded with music, so why not throw more in December? So we are going over the latest offering from Varathron, the Crimson Temple. This comes out on the 1st of December on Agonia Records. This band formed in 1988 in Greece. This is their 7th full-length overall. It's been 5 years since their last release, Patriarchs of Evil, which that is the only album that I have listened to a bit of. I'm kind of going in blind on this one, and I'm reasonably sure John's pretty blind on this one.
I'm 100% blind. I haven't heard of them until today.
Yeah. So, this is kind of a fresh take because I only listened to like a few individual tracks on the last one, and I really don't think that was enough to really grasp what this band does. This is billed as black metal, at least that's what it says on the archives, and there's a lot more going on. There's way more going on than just black metal with this band. Baseline, I would say, this band is very comparable to acts like Septic Flesh and Rotting Christ. It definitely has its blackened elements, but again, a lot of other elements, including lots of Mediterranean music kind of used for atmosphere, and my knowledge of like Greek culture can pretty much be measured in the amount of times I've watched Clash of the Titans, which is a lot. Mostly because I love Ray Harryhausen. But there's a lot of extra instrumentation going on here that I did not expect. And, well, all right, in terms of like black metal in general, I really don't think you could call this just straight up black metal.
No, it always throws me for a loop when bands are miscategorized. You get in the archives, you look them up, and you're like, all right, black metal, and you're like, all right, cool. And then you get it, and it's like, not really. Like, this is kind of like a buffet of heavy metal genres.
Yeah, all of them blackened, though, to a degree, so, I mean, that's still fair. But at the same time, like, I had my brain kind of like geared up for one thing. I looked at the album cover, and this Paolo Girardi art is absolutely amazing. Like, honestly, this is one of the coolest album covers he's done.
Yep, I want a shirt for sure. Like,
yeah.
It's disturbing. It's so well done, colorful.
Oh,
there's
dude,
just a ton going on. But the album cover and how evil the album cover alludes to the possibility that the band is going to be evil, and not really.
Not necessarily, like spots, but there's a lot of different moods going on, and we're going to get right into this. All right, the opening track is an intro. Honestly, it's kind of cool. Like, you get treble percussion, you hear people screaming in the background, you get, again, those Mediterranean flavors, though, because it's me, I instantly thought, like, this is like the Kali Ma music where the dude gets his heart ripped out and everyone's screaming because, oh my god, that's gross. How is he still alive? Questions that were never answered in that film. Anyway, you get into the main opening track, Hegemony of Chaos, and comes in with like some really catchy tremolo riffs. It does feel, very blackened, but it's very melodic. Like, this entire album really just locks in on melody. Like, there are tons of harmonies, there's layered synths, and, just all sorts of like cool melodic accents to keep this kind of from feeling like very evil, but more like triumphant. There's a lot of soaring melodies on here, and this opening track is almost kind of like a mini buffet for the rest of the buffet that's coming.
Like the kids' buffet. There were some cold growls in Hegemony of Chaos too, which kind of alludes to the fact that it would be black metal. The same can be said for the song Shrouds of Miasmic Winds, which was definitely more of a black metal feel. But that's really it.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, like, black metal is like kind of a seasoning on here, but I feel like this album was almost like an experiment to see how many different genres that they could blacken up a little bit and make it maybe a little bit more sinister and evil, because this really runs the gamut of different styles in here. In fact, the only thing that I think that is like absolutely uniform on here are the vocals. The frontman, one Stefan Necroabisius, I absolutely love that name, has amazing vocals. Like, I love his very dramatic flair. It kind of reminds me of like Sulphur Aeon and Celtic Frost. Like, he's definitely got some, Tom G. Warrior in him.
Oh, 100%.
Minus the I didn't get any of that, but they're just very theatrical, and they kind of make everything sound a little bit more grand and I don't really think this album needed that much more grandiosity because, like, there's so much going on.
Yeah, like, instead of the usual, like, desperate pleading cries you would get out of black metal, he's more like, yeah, 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 whoa!
Just rallying the cult followers from the pulpit.
Yeah, like, you could tell that in a live setting, like, this guy is very, very upfront and out there, like, almost standing, like, yelling at the crowd and almost, like, preaching, in a sense, with his vocals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you'd all drink the Kool-Aid. He'd tell you, too, and you're like, you know what? Doesn't sound like a bad idea. But as this album goes on, it really starts changing around. Like, the next 2 tracks, Crypts in the Mist and Cimmerian Priesthood, they sound like melodic death metal.
Yep.
Like, flat out, like, mid-2000s, very anthemic melodic death metal with lots of, like, keyboard flourishes. So you have, like, dark tranquility, but also sort of that triumphant Amon Amarth sort of vibe. Like, there's galloping rhythms. It's nice and double time. Like, there's some faster, thrashier sections. And it does get, like, a little bit blackened in points. But the whole vibe of it is very just, you know, soaring, like, epic. And... well, kind of missing the sinister edge, but at the same time, I was like, nah, this sounds like stuff that I really got into years ago, and that still, you know, I hold on to a little bit.
And then it gets flat out like old school heavy metal, like Sinners of the Crimson Temple, I swear to God, is a Judas Priest song.
It really is. Dude, the riff is 100% classic heavy metal, and the only thing that's missing is Rob Halford on vocals on there. I mean, I'm not saying Stefan should get out of there, because I love his vocals on this entire thing, but it's a classic heavy metal song, like down to the riffs. And honestly, this kind of plays in the production a bit too, because it's very lavish, especially when it comes down to the bridges on here, because generally that's where you hear a lot of the Mediterranean music and those cultural elements come in. But the overall production, I feel like, has been trimmed back in some aspects to make room for those elements, namely the guitars. The guitars have a more, like, kind of classic heavy metal tone to them.
They are a little bit muffled at times, but the overall tone still has a good crunch to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's kind of almost like a universal tone for this, because again, they're playing multiple styles, because the next track goes full bore into thrash metal, Immortalis Regnum Diabole. That is like the flat out thrashy barn burner. Like, you have way more aggressive riffs. It's a lot of machine gun chugging, you know, blast beats sort of pocketed in there to give it a little bit more blackened feel. But it's mostly just kind of a thrash song. Like, honestly, it kind of reminded me more of Testament than anything else.
Like I said a blackened Exodus.
Yeah.
But what's cool about this song and most of the songs going forward from this point is when it gets to the bridge, it's got an instrumental, like, Mediterranean jam. You get extra percussion, you get stringed instruments, you get, you know, maybe like a pan flute. I don't know, I'm not good with Greek instruments either, but...
Me either. Like, I could not name any of them. Maybe a lute? I don't know. I don't think that's Greek. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know.
Maybe a lyre? I don't know if that's Greek either. Anyway, the whole vibe of it is, like, you're at the venue, you know, watching a metal band, and then you step outside for a smoke, and it's like one of those open street bazaars where people are selling, like, rugs and, you know, jewels and, you know, really cool knickknacks and such. Like, it really captures that vibe, and it's really interesting because they can play right back into the heavy stuff, and the transitions are honestly pretty seamless.
It's like that scene in Aladdin where he and Abu are walking through the market, and the monkey steals an apple, and then there's a snake charmer, and then whatever. It's kind of like that.
And I know we generally don't go track by track in our reviews, but this one kind of warranted it, because for a while here it was just shifting subgenres in terms of, like, have we blackened this yet? No, we haven't. So we get to the Gods of Yore, which is blackened Candlemass.
Yep.
Like, it is an old school Doom song. Like, the opening riff is doomy as hell. Like, Solitude Eternus, hell, even going back as far as, like, Black Sabbath. But again, they pepper in enough, like, more blackened elements to kind of give it its own character. But it is 100% a Doom song. And again, this band is just checking off different subgenres of metal as this album goes on. And honestly, that is the thing that really kept me locked on this album. I like what I've heard from them before, but I think this is just kind of adventurous and fun. And it almost seemed like there was, like, a challenge, like, you know, like someone presented them with this, like, all right, you have to blacken these genres on your next album. Like, oh. okay.
And then they put all the choices into a hat. And then one by one, each of the band members drew one out in the studio, and they were like, oh, Doom, cool. And that's what we're going to do. Oh, cool. Thrash, sweet. But that's kind of how it went. And most of the songs that genre hop are back to back from one another. So you get black metal, classic heavy metal, thrash, doom, back to black metal, and then a little bit of straight up just groove in Swamp King. Really sweet grooves, fairly aggressive.
There's gang vocals in there. So I mean, like, I guess you could say maybe they took a little bit from hardcore there. This album is wild. And I like its creativity and how just kind of loose and fun it is. And loose doesn't necessarily describe the music, because the music is very tight. It's very well written. You know, I like pretty much every riff on here. Like, these guys have constantly good riffs, and being able to adapt to these changes from song to song. Like, they find solid riffs to embody those, and then on top of that add their own accents of black metal and, of course, all the Mediterranean stuff. And they close in a really good one too with Constellation of the Archons, or Archons, whatever it is. It's a very epic, kind of dark, sinister song. Like, honestly, it's one of the few songs in here where it really captures a more sinister vibe.
I thought the opening, actually, first song, the Hegemony of Chaos, also had kind of a really cold, dark vibe to it. But Constellations of the Archons is definitely 100% probably the darkest thing on the record. And it still, even then, does a little bit of genre hopping. Starts off with those big tribal drums and the whispers, a very epic feeling. And then once again in the middle, it's got that, you know, Middle Eastern kind of Mediterranean jam going on. And then a tapping lead and a shreddy lead. Like, they open up the heavy metal gates again. It's kind of like an even kiltered mixture of everything that's on the album.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it kind of caps off this album really well. The only song on here that I thought didn't sound like it was, well, a Greek black metal band, because every song on here has like those Mediterranean elements, except for Shroud of the Miasmic Winds. That one sounds like it came out of Norway. Like, that one, I think a little bit of like the Dissection / Thulkundra kind of sound comes out. It's very just straightforward melodic black metal. And honestly, I think it's one of the riffiest songs on this album, mainly because the Mediterranean elements kind of take a backseat, and you just get like cold, icy synths. And I love the guitar interplay on the main riff. Like, you have a just steady kind of humming machine gun riff behind these really cool cold tremolos. It's got a great melodic hook, and melodic hooks are all over here. In fact, I was not prepared for how melodic this was either. So even if it was more straightforward black metal, like, this would still be a very melodic, catchy, just, you know, very epic album.
Tons of hooks in here. I didn't see that coming at all, but like they're all over the place, and it's not like they're dominant by any means. Even the hooks are peppered in, but it's just enough to catch the ear to go, all right. Yeah. All right, yeah.
In terms of any negatives on here, my main negative here is also kind of a positive, where it's really kind of hard to get a hold of this band. Like, I don't know where I would introduce someone to this band in terms of a song off this album, because all of them can be so wildly different. So I'd probably have to do a handful and just tell them, like, listen to the rest of the album. But I will say, I think they are a little too in love with the synths, because the synths are, like, everywhere. They feel like they are constantly, like, just going on in the background, whether it's like a weird chanting effect of like gothic vocals or just like droning synths in the background. The synths on Sinners of the Crimson Temple, especially, like, I just feel like
they're cheesy.
Really cheesy. Like, there's a lot of good synths on here, but that one was like, man, I know you kind of want to capture that 80s heavy metal vibe, but even in the 80s, there were better settings than that. And I do have some issues with the guitars being a little bit muffled, and I get like there's a lot of layers on here to make room for, but I feel like if the guitars had a little bit more of a robust tone to them, like, these songs would really have like a little bit more power to them.
Yeah, I fall in line with that as well, and it's actually really in the first few songs that you really notice it. In the Hegemony of Chaos and Crypts in the Mist, like, they're there, and you can tell that they're doing some like riffing patterns, but there's so much else going on that you can't really make it out until it gets almost to the end of the song. Like, especially Crypts in the Mist, it wasn't until the end of the song that I heard just like some pick scraping on the strings, and I thought, maybe there is a riff there. And throughout, although they pick up a little bit more in places, they still, I don't think, are really the dominant presence in the songs,
Yeah.
so to speak. And the synths sometimes sit in the back, and sometimes they are right out front, and I think it's just the wrong tone that they're using. Like,
Yeah, there's like points where they're just a bit too much. But overall, I found this to be a really enjoyable listen. And honestly, it was kind of fun just guessing which direction they would go next. And that kind of made it like a more adventurous listen. And we were like pausing between like every track.
Yeah, every
just
track.
like, dude, like, for real? Wow. That's actually cool because all of it I think is really well executed. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. I think this was a really enjoyable listen. There's lots of variety in here, possibly too much. I don't know, like everything they did, I think they executed really well musically. It's just this album felt a little uneven at times, but it was never not fun. Like every song here was just an interesting adventure into a different subgenre with a little bit of blackened seasoning on it. And I think it was executed really well. I absolutely love the vocals on here. There's great riff work. You know, some production issues that I had, but I don't think it sounds bad at all. This is a really fun album, and I don't know how it weighs up against any of their other stuff, so this means I got to go back and listen to some older Varathron just to kind of get a read on this band, because it's almost impossible to get a read on this band as a whole on this album alone, because this is just kind of all over the place, but in a really fun way. So yeah, if you like, I'm just going to go with like Rotting Christ and Septic Flesh. Like that's the closest thing I can compare it to. But I mean, if you just like metal in general, pretty sure you'll find some stuff in here you'll like.
I'm also going to give this 3.5 stars. First of all, this being my very first listen to this band, I didn't know what I was getting into. And as I got more through the record, I still didn't know what I was getting into, which is both a negative and a positive. It was very entertaining. To me, this is kind of like the Alice in Wonderland kind of journey. Drinks the bottle and shrinks and then goes into Wonderland itself, and the Cheshire Cat shows up, and just a bunch of like weird shit happens, and you're not sure really what's happening, and that's kind of this record. It really is a bit of everything. Everything from black metal to heavy metal to thrash to doom, and a bunch of really weird instrumentation by Greek instruments. Again, I have no knowledge of Greek instruments, but here they are. Yeah, it was just a really fun listen and a great journey. Like Willy Wonka said, little surprises around every corner, but nothing dangerous. Kind of like that.
Willy Wonka's factory was dangerous, though.
It really was, especially if you have a fear of blueberries. Anyway, I definitely recommend checking this out. It is a journey. Like it's very riffy, it's very melodic, there's a bunch of sweet shit going on. Yeah, I guess if you like Rotting Christ or Judas Priest or Celtic Frost or Candlemass or Exodus or a bunch of really sweet bands, check this out because they're all in here.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel. But thrallsmetal.com is where you go to find Thralls Metal stuff. We have new shirts. We have old shirts at a discounted price. And we even have hats. If you're looking for any of that stuff, it is in the link down below.
Tons of stuff, as always, going on for Thralls of Metal. In fact, here in just a few days, we are going to celebrate 5 years of being a channel. 5 years now, we've been bringing you guys content, and the cool thing about that is 5 years later, you guys are still here, and still watching it, and still supporting us, and we can't thank you enough for that. Tons of things coming still. We have our end-of-year lists coming very shortly here, which has been an absolute chore to make, as 2023 has yielded album after album after fucking album. We're still going to bring it to you. Got the Black Dahlia Murder ranking coming. We've got retro reviews coming. Tons of stuff again. And like I said, we couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. We genuinely appreciate you. Nick?
Yeah, you guys rule. And yeah, tons of stuff coming your way. So definitely stay tuned. So I want to thank you one more time because you've been awesome. And we will catch you later.